Welcome to the Michigan Early Literacy Collaborative Module. The standard presented in this PowerPoint will focus on L.K.4b. This is one part of the language standards for kindergarten in the Common Core. Vocabulary acquisition and use in kindergarten. This module will provide ways to teach affixes and inflections of juicy words intentionally, establishing a vocabulary routine that empowers children. To use a balanced literacy model in the classroom, to check for understanding through formative assessments, to understand the assessment cycle, and to integrate this standard in reading and writing instruction. Common Core anchor standards in kindergarten are presented here. When we look at these areas for the college and career readiness, all of these parts work together. Today our focus is going to be on the yellow sprocket, which is language. Learning trajectories in kindergarten. When we look at this slide, across the way is an arrow when I have fall, winter, and spring. How you teach the standard will depend on the time of year. You will build on these anchor standards by establishing your classroom routines and procedures. The curriculum we teach is driven by an assessment cycle. The data from the assessment drives our instruction, revises our strategies to move towards our goals and needs of children. When we plan for this standard, we're implementing the standard through the use of reading. We'll look at that assessment and again regroup and revise as needed on how well children have learned, and again projecting this through the fall, the winter, and the spring. The components of a balanced literacy program are presented here. We have our core curriculum, which is what we need to be doing through explicit instruction, with our reading and our writing and working with words. It's very important that we look at balancing these things out. When we look at our modeled and our shared and our guided to become independent, all of these things work together to create success in kindergarten. Looking across the bottom where you have the arrow showing 120 to 150 minutes, obviously in kindergarten this isn't what it's going to look like. As we're building stamina, you're going to increase that time over the course of the year. Again, starting small and set those foundations to be put in place. Setting goals. Intentional teachers constantly think about goals and outcomes they want for their students and how their instructional decisions move their students towards their goals. When we look at vocabulary development, it's here in the middle of the stack, emphasized in the yellow. But all of these have equal in part to have the children become successful readers. Your concepts about print, your phonemic awareness, your phonics instruction, again working with vocabulary, your fluency and comprehension, all of these are integrated together and taught. Very important to make sure that it's balanced and used in that way. When we're scaffolding children's learning, what we need to understand is how they need to be taught. When we look at providing opportunities, either through visuals or representation of things that are real, using their first language if they're ELL students, using a read aloud, you're modeling, providing gestures, you're looking at small group or individual groups, or again your vocabulary groups, using sentence structures and starters to help that language to facilitate those conversations. Your ZPT here looks at your zone of proximal development. This is the difference between what a learner can do without help and what she can do with help. That's kind of that target learning, and the mini lesson that's developed here to teach this standard looks at that as a focus. When we look at multiple intelligences, children learn in a variety of ways. When you scaffold, you find that zone of proximal development and understand how children learn. This just provides a great way of differentiating in your classroom. What does the gradual release of responsibility model look like and sound like? In your classroom, research shows that optimal learning is achieved when teachers use the gradual release of responsibility model of instruction. We have the teaching phase, which is the I do, the teaching behavior, which is the we do, and the learner behavior, which is the you do, providing them opportunities to transfer that responsibility. Understanding the standard here, the L.K.4, if you go to the readingtennessee.org, This resource has wonderful ideas for unpacking the standards and tools to prioritize your time and the attention in teaching the standard. It's important to look at all those variety of things. If you have concerns with RTI, or if you want to look at children not getting this opportunity, great resource to go look at. But as we understand the standard, there's some things that you need to put in place so that they can have that understanding as well. Kindergarten students know how to combine word parts to make new juicy words, and that's to clarify the meaning of an unknown word. They can determine the meaning of the parts and the word and then put them back together to attempt to understand the unknown word. Also, kindergarten students must acquire these flexible strategies of applying those known word parts in a variety of texts, both narrative and the informational. Then reading comprehension increases when children are able to determine the most appropriate meaning of a word for a particular context. When we define this, children will use the most frequently occurring inflections and affixes as a clue to the meaning of an unknown word. Understanding the parts of a mini lesson in a workshop model. The lesson created for this PowerPoint is in a workshop model. There are 4 components to the workshop model that I wanted to take a moment to talk about. First is the connection. The second is your teach. Your third is your active engagement, and your 4 is your link and your share. This integrates all your scaffolding and zone of proximal development. It also gives you the opportunity for the gradual release, and again, builds on those foundational learning principles for children. Your connection. State your learning target. Readers, today our learning target is, I can use beginnings and endings of words to help me figure out what they mean. The text that you'll be using here is Wemberly Worried by Kevin Hankes. Your connection. Readers, we can use beginnings and endings of words to help figure out or decode what the word means. In this story, Wemberly Worried, Kevin Hankes used many words to help describe how she was feeling. One word he used in the title was worried. Again, underneath this text that I have here is another anchor chart for something for you to use with the prefixes and suffixes. It's important for them to have that visual. It's not as important for them to understand what a prefix and a suffix is, other than putting these pieces together and parts to build a word. Teach, usually lasting about 3 to 5 minutes. Here the teacher models or explains the precise teaching point. This is the I do, part of the gradual release. Refer back to your chart if that was made with your students that compared Wemberly and your class. And again, the chart's here noted on the slide. Readers, in order to figure out what the author meant, let's look at some examples. Go to some flag pages and share your thinking. This needs to be done ahead of time before this part begins. Now that we have a good idea on the made of connection about this word, let's create an action to help us remember the word. Students watch and listen to learn. Here you'll model the I do. Say, worried means to be very nervous all the time. Now add the motions connected to the text. Place your hands on your face. Make your eyes big to show that you're worried. Then make a circle with your finger to model all. And then point to your wrist to show time like a watch. Guided practice. This is the we do together. You may want to practice 2 or 3 times. And again, when you're finished, restate your teaching point here. Active engagement, usually lasting 3 to 5 minutes. Here the reader tries the teaching point through guided practice. Now it's your turn to try. Remember to let each person have their turn teaching the motion to the word. Teacher provides support for vocabulary teams. Here I put them in groups of 3, and you can notice the children sitting in groups of 3. It is different than the think, pair, and share. Each child is going to model and say and teach the motion to that action to the word worried. So it's important for them to have an opportunity to know what the good speaker does and what a good listener does. There's some talking tips right here that you might want to use. The MESA writing unit also has this, and launching reading has this also in the unit 1. Here you will see the you do. They'll get each 10 seconds, maybe more if needed, to teach them. And by restating the teaching point, Readers, we just used the ending of a word to help figure out what it meant, and you were able to teach your team to remember that word. Here's your link and your share. Here we set the children to transfer the teaching point to their own reading and writing. Readers, you can use beginning and endings of words to help figure out what they mean. Have the children see the connection to the word and the action, and the story Wembley Worried, the author used as illustration to also help us make that connection. Over here on the side, what I've done, the Common Core suggested some inflections and affixes. Here I've made a small anchor chart for you to use. It's something you can have handy to look at, but be emphatic about making sure that you're introducing or at least integrating some of these suffixes and prefixes during the course of the year. Here's your form and assessment piece, 1 to 2 minutes. You'll plan to notice and name the expectation, looking for understanding. You're going to teach the skill, knowing the word parts and the clues to learn those new words. You'll also help create a connection with the children to the word and the action that they've done. Your exit ticket will be a share, and this is done within the teams. I like to do a quick check using your fingers, and the chart below shows that. Showing 1 finger, I don't get it, I need help. 2, I kind of get it, I need a little bit of help and support. 3, I've got it. And 4, I've got it, and I can teach it to a friend. Once you've noticed your 1s, your 2s, your 3s, and your 4s, here's where you'll revisit and revise. You'll need to adjust your expectation to the time of year you're teaching this standard, but then also pay attention to the needs of your students. Your balanced assessment, again, this is a very important part that drives our instruction. Your formative assessments will be continuous while you're teaching the standard. Many opportunities will arise each week. This will be your discretion as to how much and when. And again, understanding the difference between the formative assessment, the interim assessment, which are your benchmarks, and your summative assessment, which shows AYP through the course of a year. Here with additional modifications, the chart in the middle shows in the purple, how do I close the gap? Moving to the red, where am I going? Down to the green, where am I now? When you provide children daily opportunities to learn about juicy words with inflections and affixes, it's going to help with that comprehension piece as readers. Your explicit instruction, modeling, and reading high-quality literature are key. And again, building new schema and action to these juicy words are going to make those connections. When readers create mental images, they engage with text in ways that make it personable and memorable to them alone. Anchored in prior knowledge, images come from the emotions and all of the 5 senses, enhancing understanding and immersing the reader in rich detail. This is by Keene and Zimmerman. Vocabulary routines are different by actively engaging children. This again is bringing another scaffolding opportunity for you. The slide here shows what that demonstration method is, because you want to model and demonstrate that before you give them those opportunities. And again, you can sit right on the floor and model that with them. Here's just some suggestions using the mentor text, small group anchor charts to build connections to lesson, and again the STAR books, which are in the MESA reading units 1 and 2, to integrate your approach for teaching vocabulary, because children are very familiar with those books because you've read those STAR books 4 times each. Here are our anchor standards that link to this model. We want you to try to find ways to integrate these standards in your daily activities. Multiple opportunities and exposure and our content standards promote success across the curriculum. Your L.K.4, your L.K.4b, your RLK4, your SLK1A and 1B, which is your speaking and language. All of these are very important to give opportunities to be successful. I hope this was a learning opportunity for you in teaching the standard. Again, it's just one way to teach the standard. Thank you for listening, and good luck.